Hi, my name is Mr. Meadows, and this is my sensational story.
So I was born in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. I lived down there essentially on the beach until I was 12 when Hurricane Katrina hit. Then I moved to Iowa. I went to high school in Iowa. I lived in Iowa until after high school when I came to Chicago for college. So I was oddly excited to be in a very catastrophic storm and see what it's like. My parents were thankfully a little smarter and knew that we should probably evacuate our house. So when it did become a Category 5 and was coming right towards us, Sunday, August 28th, my parents woke up and made the decision that we were going to evacuate. We didn't know exactly where we were going to go at the time, but we got in our van, we're pulling up the driveway, and we have a flat tire. Which ended up being a blessing because our neighbors, who was actually my best friend, had tried to evacuate. They tried to get on the interstate. They couldn't get on the interstate because there were so many people, so they came back and told us that. But that's me with the long hair standing next to one of my younger sisters, Michelle. And this is pretty much us looking at our house before it got flooded. This was right before we left. This was my dad trying to take a picture for the insurance companies of a before picture in case anything were to happen to it. My middle school at the time, which was about 5 minutes away by car, was serving as a shelter for government employees. And my mom was a teacher at the elementary school, so we were able to stay at the middle school. One of the few things that we did bring to the shelter was our hockey equipment. So to pass the time, we played roller hockey in the halls of my middle school. So when we were in the shelter, one of the things we were doing is because it started to leak rainwater into the shelter, so we couldn't play roller hockey anymore, so we started playing hide and go seek. And I still remember we were playing, and one of the kids we were playing with, his older sister came up to him at one point during the day on Monday and said, "You better keep the clothes that you're wearing clean because it's all we have left." And that was kind of the first moment where it hit me that this is a lot more serious than I'd been taking it. We did have a pond in our backyard, so we were concerned about a little bit of flooding, so we sandbagged 3 feet in our back door to keep water out. And then eventually later that night, we found out from my dad that our house had also been flooded with 16 feet of water. I mean, you didn't have electricity, you didn't have clean running water. So every morning at 6 a.m., my mom, my dad would go to the local grocery store where they're distributing food, ice, and military meals ready to eat. Which, when the time those finally arrived, which was a few days after the storm, they tasted amazing just because it was an actual hot meal, versus what we'd been eating was cold SpaghettiOs or cold soups or whatever you could get in your cabinet that wouldn't go bad. Anything in your fridge or freezer, you pretty much had to try to eat in the first few days, otherwise it was all bad. There was a curfew in effect. Essentially, no one was supposed to be outside at night. People were concerned about looting. This was South Mississippi, so there were a lot of signs in front of houses that said looters will be shot. I remember a string of houses that said looters will be shot here too, looters will also be shot here. You had a Winnie the Pooh out front of a house with a shotgun across it. I saw people loading AR-15s into the back of their cars. I think one of the saddest parts of the storm, right, I'm generally okay with this. I'll think about Katrina a lot and how it impacted my life, and I think about the fact that I wouldn't be here right now without Katrina. We had a cat, a dog, and my sisters had some guinea pigs at the time. And when we left, we put our pets into the basement of our house because our concern was a tree falling through the roof, not flooding. And so that was the safest place in our heads for them. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was our dog and our cat and my sister's guinea pigs all ended up being trapped, and they all drowned in the storm. And I think that was the hardest part. I remember very specifically in my head, like, take all my possessions, but the fact that our animals drowned in the storm was really, really hard for me. And it's still hard to think about. I think what makes it especially tough, and I really feel for my dad, is when we got to the shelter the night of the storm, we found out we could have brought pets to the shelter. But our concern was, at that point, we didn't want to head back out into the storm to get them. We were worried about our own safety, and we thought they would be fine. And I'm sure my dad struggles with that a lot more than I do, because that was his decision. But it's definitely, that was the hardest part.
Listen to everything that I tell you.
Okay.
Mr. Meadows, I think, is, he's getting there. He's still young and he's still learning the craft. But I think he's got a lot of potential, and I think he does a great job.
Always impressed at his energy and his willingness to try new things. He's always looking around for different techniques and different ideas for what kind of materials or activities we can use. And that's always just really inspiring to work with. It's always great to work with people that are always trying out new things, and that helps me try out new things and helps us work better together.
Mr. Meadows, as a teacher, he's not a teacher to be like, oh, do this now and do it that way. He's really hands-on. Like, if you don't understand anything, he will gladly go through it as many times as you need until you get it. And even if you don't need it, he's always there before and after school to help you out. And even then, he's gonna make a way for you to understand the material.
I've grown a lot. I think getting to know my students has been really, really important, and getting to know how to best teach them what strategies work best, what doesn't work best. I think being a teacher, it's really important that we are always learning and always trying to do better. And I think I've improved a lot since my first year. I know I've still got a long ways to go, but I think the important part is being committed to that learning and constantly trying to get better. I definitely still see myself in the school. I think in a school, I think this education is a way to empower people. I don't think the current system does as good of a job as it can. I don't think it's hard to point at a single individual. I'm not talking at a school level, I'm talking about a nationwide level. And part of my goal is to improve that system. It's a pretty lofty goal, but I think the next steps for me personally are trying to get a master's degree, working towards, I want to get a doctorate, and become a leader in the education system in the country.